How how are you doing?
Good. Love your background. So unique.
It's an NFT.
Where's that from? I'm
It,
trying to guess. Is
it's
it
an it's an
Korea?
NFT that was made for me based on a Japanese vending machine.
Oh, wow. Very fun.
So,
Great.
shall I get started?
Please, yes.
Right, marvelous. Forget everything that guy just talked about because a lot of it was a load of rubbish. I'm going to tell you now how you should do digital fashion because your digital fashion absolutely sucks. And I'm going to explain to you why in this very short presentation. We're going to have like loads of fun, but we're also going to have a look at why maybe it's not as difficult as you think to get into digital fashion, especially games. So your digital fashion sucks and our digital fashion works. And we work with a variety of different brands, all of whom I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit and what their specific requirements are and how you're going to get the best from your digital fashion itself if you're a designer or an atelier, but also how you're going to get the most out of your brands if you're in marcoms or other kinds of e-commerce related experiences. We're doing something very, very unique at Naked because we believe that the evolution of e-commerce is G-commerce, that's games commerce. So I'm Kelly Vero. I've been working in the games industry for 30 years. These are some of the things that I've worked on. So you can see Tomb Raider, Halo, Candy Crush, Subway Surfers, Transformers. I've also worked with Louis Vuitton very, very early on from about 2018, 2019, just before the pandemic with Virgil Abloh. I'm going to show you a little bit of what we did then as well. And I've worked with everybody from Warner to Audemars Piguet, IWC watches in helping them to develop an entire end-to-end. So I try not to think about digital fashion as being like just one thing. I try and think about it as not being a saleable wearable. I try to think about digital fashion as being the kind of pinnacle product of whatever it is that you create inside your business. So maybe starting with that kind of thought process is a really good way to go. Because I think if we think about, oh, I made a dress, now I need to turn it into digital fashion, you're going to be left really disappointed. Because if that's all that you can create and you're not really thinking ahead of the curve at what's coming next, your dress, however digital it is going to be pretty outdated pretty quickly. So I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks today on how to get the most out of what it is that you're creating. So when I first started working in the games industry in 1995, my first game was Tomb Raider. This is what fashion looked like. So on the left, we've got the Cyber collection from Jean-Paul Gaultier, which was really sort of prescient and nascent in its development at the time. And everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we look back at it, it's not that exciting and prescient and nascent because we've really developed as humans and our connection to fashion has become something that's very behavioral and strands. And so we should make sure that our digital fashion also strands. It strands across like this Zoom that I'm on now. So I'm wearing a filter lipstick, to playing in video games, to going in Snapchat, to having a conversation. I don't think anybody uses Facebook anymore, but if they did, they might be utilizing the technology inside Facebook to make stuff happen that isn't advertising related. And in the middle, we've got some concept art from Mortal Kombat, which I think is quite fun because both Lara, and bearing in mind that my experience of Lara is probably a little bit different to yours, she's a female Indiana Jones. So her entire character is about being slightly androgynous, except for she's got massive boobs. So as you can see, they're completely triangulated here. However, over at Mortal Kombat, the concept art is really focused on the sexualization of females, something that has really changed, especially in the last few years when we're thinking about developing fashion for avatars. Please bear in mind, everybody, that as I talk today, 85% of Gen Z individuals have avatars. So if we're not doing D2C, direct to consumer, through avatar development, we are wasting our entire careers. Absolutely ridiculous. So think about that magic number. 85% of all Gen Z have avatars. It doesn't mean that they're all active. I think, as James said in his previous presentation, there are 56 million unique users over at Roblox. It doesn't mean they're all on the platform every single day. But what you're looking for is good daily active usage. And in video games, you're going to find a really good across the board split of where you can totally get your brand into, if that's something you want to do. Digital fashion in 2023 is a massive joke. And the reason why it's a huge joke is because it's so limited. The fashion looks really a bit like Jean-Paul Gaultier's 1995 collection in a sense. So fashion hasn't really developed like massively in terms of vision, but certainly in terms of technology, I'm going to be really honest with you now and be very British. It's taking the piss a little bit out of technology because it's too much. It's too big. It's too heavy. It looks stupid when it's put onto an AR try-on. It's heavy. If you've ever felt your phone get really hot when you're looking at something in AR, it's because your phone is desperately trying to keep up with the amount of pixels it has to render. Think about it, kids. You've got to make everything smaller. You've got to make everything more manageable, and you don't have to lose any quality. So when we think about competitors in this space that are creating 10 megabytes, 50 megabytes, 1 terabyte worth of image that's being rendered down into a dress or some kind of item, is it any wonder that people are buying it? It's because it's too much, everybody. Chill out. Are you doing it wrong? Yeah. So as I said before, everything's just got a bit too much in digital fashion. We were dumped with this thing. I think the first time people started talking about digital fashion was around about 2012 to 2014. Thea Bauman is one of the first people to do AR try-on, if not the first person. Please follow her. She's absolutely amazing. She did an AR try-on of nail varnish colors. So that's the first time that we really saw AR work as a principle and as a practical experiment. Furthermore, in recent times, we have seen this explosion, this incredible explosion of everything that's connected to digital fashion. So that could be wearing of jewelry, it could be the wearing of a dress. We've seen companies like Dressed and DressX. We've got Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana selling $10,000 dresses, but these are mostly all crap. And one of the reasons why they're crap is because of what I explained before, but also because of the quality principles that are applied to them. I work in the games industry, so I'm around technology all the goddamn time. And what I see all the time is a high standard of quality models and quality items that are being created within a game development setting and situation. I thought it'd be a really good idea to build a business out of this. So I founded Naked. And Naked is the first interoperable fashion, digital fashion company in the world. We work between the brands and video games. And that's about it. We do what we say on the tin. We are completely naked. Everything is totally transparent. We don't try and be something that we're not. So we certainly don't create heavy meshes, because heavy mesh equals broken mesh. If you create something that's really heavy, filled with tries, filled with quads, so meshes are made up of quads, which are sectioned into 2 halves, which become tries, and the meshes, if they're super heavy, they create hot mobile phones, hot PCs, fans running all the time, hard to render objects. If you over texture on the top of that by adding heavy metallics or super undiscovered textures that you think are really going to change the world, they're not going to change the world. They're just going to break your computer. So avoid that like the plague. Instead, use good tools like Adobe Substance, or use Visu, who make fantastic digital textures. I absolutely love Martin Schemsch and the team over in Germany. They do a fantastic job at really pushing the bleeding edge of texture in technology. Then I would look at who's in your team. If you've got low or no experience in your team, for heaven's sake, ship that stuff out to a third party. Find somebody in your team or export it to somebody or outsource it in some way that they can work on it, and bring it into a style that you should be happy with as an atelier or a maison. One of the key reasons why is because when that stuff renders, especially on our side in Naked, if we want it to look good in Roblox and we want it to look good in Call of Duty, we have to make sure that original source is spot on, and it has to be of a very high quality, or we can't work with it. So we do something that's kind of quite different. We work from a physical to digital. That's cool. But we also work using generative AI. So we work with SKUs. So if you've ever used product lifecycle management tools, from Lectra to, oh God, anything, insert your favorite brand here, even Browseware, what gets spat out oftentimes is a SKU, and you can find that in the label on your clothing. Now, it's our dream to make sure the fashion that we create is really sustainable. So if we can take the SKU at source at the time that it's being designed, we can pass it directly through the product life cycle and directly out into a digital merchandisable product before it even goes into production, which I think is pretty cool. It means that we can work with tools and pipelines really, really well to make your product snap. Now, also, one of the problems is poor rendering. Poor rendering is bad. You saw that image at the beginning of me with the wings or with the stupid headdress or whatever. It just looks wrong when it's added on to either a photorealistic image, or even if it's added into Animal Crossing. If it's hyper realistic and it's got way too much detail, it's really not going to wash with a game development company. And also, to James' point, I mean, just to raise, a lot of game studios will not even let you do anything inside their tool sets. They do with us because they trust that somebody who has very kind of real game development experience for the past 30 years can handle any of their game environments really well. And that's why Naked probably is as successful as it is in the past year. Also, there's a long lead time to be able to develop clothing. It can take anything from 4 days to 12 weeks for one piece. You want to be really fast. We use generative AI to make that process even faster also. And finally, ship physics. If you add physics to an item, you basically messed up from day one. Don't put too much physics in your digital fashion. It looks like hell when it's ported to different devices or different games. So please don't do that. This is how it started with Naked, and I worked with Virgil Abloh just before the pandemic to create the Speedy bag, and we wanted to do this in such a way as we would be able to check the provenance and get really inside the bag and have a look at how it's made, how it's developed, what the provenance of the fabric and the textile was that was being used, what the patination was like on the handle, etc. That was really super, because what that's given way to is now Pharrell, as the new creative director after Virgil's passing, has started to create these types of NFTs. So LVMH know that the system works. They can, using CT technology, which I've done here, go 60 times into a garment textile to figure out what the provenance is of that garment, especially. And I think that even if we just worked on a pilot project together, I think this is a definite way that we will be able to counter things like counterfeiting, understand what organic cotton really means by being able to create traceable fabrics that are more than an Excel spreadsheet. This is something that we did with Netflix, and also Alexander McQueen, and also the Miles Morales Spider-Man. Now, one of the points about this that's really interesting is luxury brands cost money, a lot of money. And they want to be able to put their clothing into video games for the same cost. You only have to go onto places like DressX or go to the fabricant and see that these items of clothing cost about $500 for a digital piece. Wrong, shouldn't be doing that. People don't have that kind of money. They don't want to do that stuff. And also, if you want to stop landfill and create more sustainable choices, then you should be allowing people to spend time with their garments in an interoperable setting. Video games is one of the best places to be able to do that. And we found that if we sell a garment for $5, then we can split that game revenue with the game studio directly, and that gives us a really good business model with which to work with our brands and ensure that the high quality and standard is maintained throughout, and that people have an affordability factor when they're in places like Fortnite or Minecraft. So that's cool. We've been working with Lulu Guinness, Alexander McQueen, which you saw. We've worked on the Netflix Wednesday collection, and that will be available as well again in time for Halloween. And Miles Morales Into the Spider-Verse is a collection that we worked on also. Each collection is about 30 items, and they range from pants to accessories to footwear. We've got branded footwear in there, which you've seen from Nike, etc. We've got about 30 fashion brands that we're working with and 10 virtual worlds and games that you can find our products in. It's only our first year, so we think we're going to be pretty massive as we develop and fine-tune exactly what it is that we're doing using generative AI. The average time it takes for us to create stuff, this Lulu Guinness bag, came directly through photogrammetry and scan, which you can see the mesh on the left side. It's lightweight, it's available to be ported to any device, and what's great about it is that you can buy it maybe in Animal Crossing for $5. Certainly it'll be available in Hello Kitty later this year, and it's only our first year. So the cool stuff that we're doing is just growing, I think, and we could really help you if you are a young designer or you're not quite sure about what it is that you want to do and you want to get some good direction or some good exposure, because don't forget that digital fashion is about PR as well. Why games? Access to brands, access to customers. We're digitally sustainable, so we work throughout the PLM system using only digital. And we've got auditable and traceable items, so you can actually see real-time sales data. That gets sent back to us by the games. And we believe that the evolution of e-commerce is G-commerce. We won't be using websites anymore to buy clothing. We'll be buying them in game. And hopefully, Nike could be the first company to be able to make that happen. I've got a book coming out on Friday called From Pixels to Portals, exploring the future of the metaverse through the evolution of video games. It's only available as a pre-sale in NFT. You can buy it this Friday if you want to. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can via LinkedIn and yeah, Twitter, email, you name it. I'm everywhere. Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you so much. As you said, that was really entertaining and really interesting to hear about the history of all of this and the first brands that got involved. I haven't seen much of Jean-Paul Gaultier recently, so that's interesting. And I love Alexander McQueen and all of these things. Have you done a bit on the brand licensing side? Because, you know, there are brands over here, games over there, you're kind of the intermediary. So how do you do that? Are you the bridge between those two, or do you let them do it and then they come to you?
No, we do it with them. So we reach out to the brands first, and then we place those brands inside games. So games have also got a similar IP structure that's quite important, because they want to create something that is going to be a much bigger world, almost like a metaverse. And in order to do so, they have to protect their IP from kind of day one. So we're never going to see Gucci and say Lord of the Rings, even though that would be sort of really cool. We're probably more likely to see Vivienne Westwood in Lord of the Rings, to be honest.
Yes.
But the relationship between those two things is we work directly with the brand, and then we make that available to any of the games that we work with, and they just pull it down from our server and basically say, we will be taking this, and this is the code that we've got, and blah, 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 and we will give you the revenue. So Everybody's happy. And it doesn't matter whether Coco Chanel, perfume is being worn with a Gucci jacket, is being worn with a pair of Pull and Bear trousers. It doesn't matter at all, because in the video game sector, it's totally different than reading pages of Vogue. My mantra always is, it takes me an hour to read Vogue, and it takes me 8 hours to complete a level on Call of Duty. Where would I rather be advertising my stuff?
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Because then you're exposed to the fashion all the time when
Constantly, yeah.
you're in there. And do you work with independent fashion designers then?
Absolutely, yeah, we definitely do. We work with a couple of independents who are based out of Brazil, and we've just got a new independent that's coming to us from Japan. So we've got some really nice up and coming designers that really want to harness the power of video games. Yeah.
Mhm. Great. And what is the model there for? Is it, how does that work?
Well, it's exactly the same, really. But I think that with bigger brands, it more comes out of their marketing budget, and for smaller brands, it comes more out of their entire startup kind of budget.
Yeah.
And so, in that case, we are much more open to working with them on a either per project basis or per item basis, but we come with the sales data, so it's very obvious very quickly that the stuff that we're creating is worth having inside video games.
And last question, so there's the kind of process of digital fashion, clothes 3D, probably to games and physical. So obviously what you're doing is way better than clothes 3D because it's not optimized for games. But then you also have fashion brands that might create a physical collection. Games are an afterthought, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we need to also, launch in a game. What's the lead time, and how do you do that? Do you have to take photographs from all different angles to get the right
No, we
presentation, or are you
just
creating a completely new collection?
Yeah, I mean, we just work with Metropolis World, actually, which is a new metaverse that's dropping in the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that was really key was that they wanted to make sure they had exposure across all different platforms as well, but they only had 2D designs. So we can take CAD, we can take a little sketch on a handkerchief if that's what you've got, and we can use generative AI to build the image. We do it again between 4 days for an item to 12 weeks for an entire collection.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. That
Thank
was really
you.
fascinating. Really looking forward to buying your book. So send me across any details once you launch, and I'll help you get
Oh, thank you, thank
push it
you.
out.
Can I just say thanks for the opportunity of doing this, and thank you so much for all of the effort that you put into this. It's really important for us as up and coming digital fashion, AI, beauty, etc., to be able to have people like you
Oh,
looking
thank
after
you.
us. So thank you very much.
No
Nobody
worries.
says that to you, I'm sure, but I'm saying it now on behalf
Oh
of
yeah, no,
everybody
it's
probably in
it's
the
great
room.
to I'll pat myself on the back. Thanks. One thing just to add is apart from Gen AI Con, I've got Fashion AI. We do these competitions, lots of amazing images. But I've been exploring the world of can we create for each one of those collections, which are collaborative collections, can we turn that into a game? And
Easily.
yeah.
Everything you talked about with James earlier is a really good way to go.
Mhm.
Use a platform that already exists before you build your own, and really do look at the possibilities of quality, because if quality is the thing that is going to be able to lift you as an organization or as a designer, you need to make sure that your destination platform suits what your aspirations are as an atelier.
Perfect. And yeah, I think it's important that more women are designing games. There are lots of female gamers out there, and not all of them wants to play with a sexualized kind of Tomb
Exactly.
Raider. They've got different aspirations and storylines that can play out in
Absolutely.
the game. So really fascinating stuff. Great. So I'll
Thank
pass on
you.
to ends.
Have a great time, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome.